We all face moments that test us. The unexpected email, the rude comment, the situation spiraling out of control. And in those moments, our first instinct is often to react quickly, emotionally, sometimes even aggressively. But here's the problem. Reacting from emotion rarely leads to the best outcome. The greatest leaders, the most composed individuals, don't just have talent or intelligence, they have control over their state of mind. They train their minds to be calm in every situation. When chaos surrounds us, when uncertainty clouds our judgment, and when emotions threaten to take control, one truth remains: clarity comes from calm. It is in stillness, not in panic, that we find the right answers. Yet most of us have been conditioned to believe that action, any action, is better than pausing. We mistake movement for progress, reaction for leadership, and urgency for efficiency. But true clarity, the kind that leads to wise decisions, meaningful actions, and long-term success, can only emerge when our minds are steady. Imagine a stormy ocean. The waves crash, the wind howls, and the surface is restless. If you were to drop a coin into those turbulent waters, you'd never see where it lands. But if the water were still, if there were no waves distorting your view, you could see straight to the bottom. This is exactly how our minds work. When we are consumed by stress, anger, or anxiety, our ability to see things clearly is distorted. Our emotions act like crashing waves, preventing us from understanding situations objectively. But when we cultivate calmness, the mental waters settle, and suddenly everything becomes clearer. Clarity is not about knowing everything or having all the answers in the moment. It's about creating the right conditions to make the best decision possible. When we are calm, we allow logic and reason to work alongside intuition. We don't rush into action blindly, nor do we let fear dictate our choices. Instead, we take a step back, assess the situation, and respond in a way that aligns with our values and long-term goals. Think about the times in your life when you've made decisions in a state of frustration or panic. Maybe it was an argument where you said something you later regretted. Maybe it was a business decision made in haste, only to realize later that a better opportunity was just around the corner. In moments of high emotion, our ability to process information is compromised. We focus on short-term relief instead of long-term outcomes. But when we train ourselves to remain calm, we create space between stimulus and response. Space that allows us to think, to reflect, and to choose wisely. Calmness also has a profound effect on the people around us. In any situation, the person who remains steady has the greatest influence. Think of a crisis scenario, a plane experiencing turbulence, a company going through financial difficulty, or a family facing unexpected hardship. In those moments, people don't look to the loudest person in the room, they look to the calmest. Because calmness signals confidence. It signals control. It reassures others that everything will be okay, even when uncertainty is high. But how do we cultivate this kind of inner stillness? It starts with awareness. Noticing when emotions are taking over and choosing not to react immediately. It requires us to breathe, to pause, to assess. It means challenging our impulses and replacing automatic reactions with intentional responses. And it also involves training ourselves daily through meditation, mindfulness, deep breathing, or even simply practicing patience in small moments, like when we're stuck in traffic or dealing with a difficult person. The more we practice, the more natural it becomes. Over time, calmness turns into our default setting, and with it, clarity follows. We begin to see through the noise. We focus on what truly matters. We no longer get caught up in unnecessary battles or fleeting emotions. Instead, we navigate life with a sense of certainty, making decisions that align with our highest purpose. In a world that constantly demands urgency, staying calm is a competitive advantage. It allows us to think more clearly, act more wisely, and lead with confidence. The next time life throws a challenge your way, ask yourself, am I reacting from emotion, or am I creating clarity through calm? Because the strongest, most successful people aren't those who rush into action. They are the ones who pause, who breathe, who center themselves, knowing that clarity always comes from calm. In every challenging situation, the way we respond defines the outcome. Yet most of us are conditioned to react instantly, to defend ourselves when criticized, to retaliate when provoked, to make quick decisions under pressure. But reacting impulsively often leads to regret. It clouds our judgment, escalates conflicts, and makes us act in ways that do not align with our values. The key to making better choices, maintaining our composure, and strengthening our relationships lies in one simple habit: pausing before we react. The pause is powerful. It creates a gap between what happens to us and how we choose to respond. In that small space, we regain control. We move from reacting out of habit to responding with intention, and that single shift can change everything. Think about a time when you were frustrated. Maybe someone made a rude comment or you received an unexpected email that angered you. Your instinct might have been to fire back immediately to defend yourself or to express your emotions in the heat of the moment. But how often does reacting this way actually improve the situation? More often than not, it escalates tensions, creates misunderstandings, and makes the problem worse. Now imagine if instead you had paused. If you had taken a deep breath, stepped back, and given yourself a few moments to think, how different could that interaction have been? Pausing before we react is not about suppressing emotions. It is about giving ourselves the space to process them without letting them dictate our actions. When we pause, we allow reason to catch up with emotion. We give ourselves time to ask, is this response going to serve me in the long run? Will it make things better or worse? That moment of reflection is often enough to help us choose a response that is aligned with our goals rather than one driven by temporary frustration. This practice is especially important in leadership, relationships, and high-stakes situations. Great leaders do not react impulsively. They assess, they listen, they think. They understand that their response has the power to inspire confidence or create chaos. The same applies in personal relationships. A thoughtless reaction can damage trust, while a thoughtful response can strengthen understanding. The more we pause before we react, the more we cultivate patience, wisdom, and emotional intelligence. Training ourselves to pause takes practice. It starts with awareness, recognizing when we are about to react emotionally and making a conscious effort to delay that reaction. One of the simplest ways to do this is through deep breathing. The moment you feel triggered, take a slow breath in, hold it for a second, and exhale. This small action signals to your brain that you are in control, allowing you to respond from a place of clarity rather than impulse. Another effective method is to create a mental habit of asking, what's the bigger picture here? When we focus only on the immediate moment, our emotions take center stage, but when we zoom out and consider the long-term impact, we gain perspective. Will this situation matter a year from now? Is this worth losing my peace over? These questions help us detach from temporary emotions and respond with a clearer mind. We must also practice this skill in small, everyday moments. If someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of reacting with anger, pause. If a colleague is being difficult, instead of snapping, take a breath. If you receive criticism, instead of getting defensive, take a moment to process it. Every time we choose to pause, we strengthen our ability to remain calm under pressure. Over time, this practice transforms us. We become less reactive and more intentional. We no longer allow external situations to dictate our internal state. We develop the kind of presence that commands respect, builds trust, and fosters deeper connections. In a world that constantly demands quick responses, the ability to pause before reacting is a rare and powerful skill. It gives us control over our emotions, our choices, and ultimately our lives. Emotions are a fundamental part of being human. They provide us with valuable information about how we experience the world. However, many people let their emotions dictate their actions without question. They feel angry, so they lash out. They feel anxious, so they avoid. They feel hurt, so they withdraw. But emotions, as powerful as they are not instructions. They are data. They tell us something about our internal state, but they do not have to control our decisions. Understanding this concept changes everything. When we see emotions as data, we create space between what we feel and what we do. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can assess and decide how to respond in a way that aligns with our values and long-term goals. Imagine your emotions as notifications on your phone. When you receive a message, you don't automatically assume it's an emergency. You read it, interpret its importance, and then decide whether or not to act. Emotions work the same way. They alert us to something happening internally, but they do not always require immediate action. For example, anger is often seen as a negative emotion, something to be suppressed or avoided. But anger is just a signal. It tells us that something feels unfair or out of alignment with our expectations. Instead of immediately reacting with aggression, we can pause and ask, what is this anger trying to tell me? Is there something I need to address, or is this just a momentary frustration? That shift in perspective allows us to use our emotions constructively rather than letting them control us. The same applies to fear. Fear is an essential emotion that has helped humans survive for thousands of years. It warns us of danger and helps us stay cautious, but in modern life, fear often shows up when we face uncertainty, new challenges, or personal growth. If we take fear as a directive, we might avoid opportunities that could lead to progress. Instead of running from fear, we should analyze it. Is this fear protecting me from real harm, or is it just discomfort from stepping outside my comfort zone? When we treat fear as data rather than a command, we can differentiate between true danger and self-imposed limitations. Sadness, too, has its role. It tells us that something we care about has been lost or changed. Instead of drowning in sadness or avoiding it altogether, we can use it to understand what truly matters to us. If losing a job, for example, causes deep sadness, that could indicate that our sense of purpose was tied to that role. That realization then becomes an opportunity for self-discovery and realignment. One of the most effective ways to apply this mindset is to develop emotional awareness. When an emotion arises, instead of immediately acting on it, take a moment to name it. Simply identifying what you are feeling, whether it's frustration, disappointment, excitement, or anxiety, reduces its intensity. This practice helps us observe emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Another key strategy is reframing. When an emotion surfaces, instead of seeing it as a command, ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me? If stress arises before an important presentation, instead of thinking, I'm too nervous, I can't do this, reframe it as, my body is preparing me to perform well. This means I care about the outcome. That shift in interpretation turns anxiety into motivation. Emotional mastery does not mean ignoring feelings or pretending they don't exist. It means recognizing that while emotions provide important insights, they do not dictate our actions. We have the power to choose how we respond. The more we practice this, the more control we gain over our lives. Instead of being led by impulse, we act with intention. Instead of letting emotions steer us in directions we later regret, we use them as tools for growth. In the end, emotions are not the enemy, they are guides. But like any guide, they must be interpreted wisely. When we stop seeing emotions as directives and start treating them as data, we gain the clarity, strength, and wisdom to navigate life's challenges with confidence and purpose. The world around us is unpredictable. People will be rude, circumstances will shift, challenges will arise without warning. Yet despite all of this, we have a choice: to be controlled by our environment or to control how we respond to it. Far too often we allow external factors, stressful situations, difficult people, unexpected setbacks to dictate our emotions, our mindset, and ultimately our actions. But true strength comes from within, not from the conditions around us. When we understand that our environment doesn't control us, we gain the power to stay calm, focused, and in command of our own lives. Many people believe that their happiness, success, or sense of peace is dependent on things going their way. They tell themselves, I'll be happy when my job is less stressful, or I'll feel calm when people stop irritating me. But if we attach our emotional state to the external world, we are giving away our power. Because the truth is, the world will never be perfectly aligned with our expectation. There will always be obstacles, difficult people, and unpredictable events. If we wait for circumstances to change before we allow ourselves to feel at peace, we will be waiting forever. Instead, we must realize that our internal state is something we control. No one else has the power to make us feel a certain way unless we allow them to. A rude comment only affects us if we give it meaning. A stressful situation only overwhelms us if we let it. A setback only defines us if we decide it does. The power to remain steady and composed exists within us. It's just a matter of strengthening that mindset. Think of two people stuck in the same traffic jam. One person is furious, honking their horn, gripping the steering wheel in frustration, letting the delay ruin their entire day. The other person is calm, listening to music, using the extra time to reflect or think. The traffic is the same for both people. The only difference is their mindset. One has allowed the environment to control their emotions, while the other has chosen to remain in control. The same principle applies in every area of life. In the workplace, some people crumble under pressure while others thrive. In relationships, some let small disagreements turn into major conflicts while others approach them with patience and understanding. In personal growth, some people let failures define them while others see them as learning experiences. The difference is not in the environment, it's in how they choose to interpret and respond to it. So how do we develop this mindset? First, we must take responsibility for our emotions. Instead of saying, this situation is making me angry, shift the perspective to, I am feeling anger because of how I am interpreting this situation. That small shift in language is powerful because it reminds us that we are in control of our reactions. Second, practice emotional detachment. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions, but rather observing them without letting them take over. When something frustrating happens, take a deep breath and ask, is this worth giving my energy to? Will this matter a week from now? Most of the time, the answer is no. By creating this space between stimulus and response, we give ourselves the chance to choose calm over chaos. Third, develop internal stability through habits like mindfulness, deep breathing, and mental reframing. When we regularly train our minds to stay grounded, we become less reactive to external factors. We stop allowing the environment to dictate our inner world. At the end of the day, life will test us. People will be difficult, plans will fall apart, and unexpected challenges will come our way. But the strongest people, the ones who lead, who inspire, who truly thrive, are those who refuse to let their environment control them. They remain steady in the storm, calm under pressure, and focused on what truly matters. And when we embrace this mindset, we step into our full power, no longer at the mercy of the world, but fully in control of our own destiny. Resilience is not something we are born with. It is something we build. Just like a muscle, it strengthens through repetition. Every challenge we face, every setback we overcome, and every difficult moment we endure adds another layer to our ability to handle life's uncertainties. The more we practice resilience, the more naturally it becomes a part of us. Many people believe that resilience is about being naturally strong, about never feeling discouraged or affected by hardship. But that is not true. Resilience is not about avoiding pain or struggle. It is about developing the capacity to recover and move forward despite them. And the only way to build that capacity is through experience and repetition. Think about learning any skill. The first time you try something new, it feels uncomfortable, even frustrating. Whether it's learning a language, playing an instrument, or developing a new habit, the beginning is always difficult. But with repetition, what once felt impossible becomes easier. Your brain and body adapt, and over time, what once required effort becomes second nature. Resilience works the same way. The more we face difficulties, the better we become at handling them. Consider a person who has never faced failure. The first time they encounter a serious setback, they may feel completely overwhelmed, unable to cope. Now think of someone who has faced failure multiple times and has learned how to bounce back. For them, failure is not the end, it is just another step in the process. They know that disappointment does not define them. They have trained themselves to push forward, to find solutions, and to keep going no matter what. This ability is not something they were born with. It was built through repetition. The key to developing resilience is not avoiding discomfort, but leaning into it. Every time we face a difficult situation, we have two choices: to shy away from it or to confront it. When we choose to confront it, we grow, we develop problem-solving skills, emotional endurance, and mental toughness. Over time, what once seemed unbearable becomes manageable. The things that used to shake us no longer have the same power over us. Repetition builds resilience in both big and small ways. It is found in everyday moments. Choosing to get up and keep going when things don't go as planned, pushing through self-doubt, or staying committed to a goal even when motivation fades. Each time we push through a challenge, we reinforce the belief that we are capable, that we can handle difficulties, and that we have the strength to persevere. A great example of this is athletes. No one becomes a champion overnight. They train, they fail, they push themselves, and they repeat the process over and over again. Each time they fail, they learn. Each time they fall, they get back up. And over time, this repetition turns them into champions. Their resilience is not the result of talent alone. It is the result of years of showing up, working hard, and refusing to quit. This same principle applies to all areas of life, whether it's building confidence, overcoming rejection, or managing stress. The more we practice handling adversity, the more resilient we become. The first time we face rejection, it hurts. The 10th time, it still stings, but we recover faster. The 100th time, we understand that rejection is not personal. Is just part of the journey. By repeating the process of facing challenges, we develop a deep sense of inner strength that allows us to handle whatever life throws our way. But building resilience does not mean we have to do it alone. Seeking support, learning from others, and embracing challenges as opportunities for growth all contribute to strengthening our ability to persevere. Resilience is not about never falling. It is about learning to rise every time we do. At its core, resilience is a habit. It is built through the choices we make every day. The more we embrace discomfort, the more we challenge ourselves, and the more we push through difficult moments, the stronger we become. Through repetition, resilience transforms from something we struggle with into something that defines us. And when we reach that point, no obstacle can break us, because we have built ourselves to withstand anything. Confidence is not always about being the loudest in the room, the most assertive, or the most charismatic. True confidence comes from something deeper, a sense of calm, clarity, and composure in any situation. When we remain calm under pressure, we inspire confidence in ourselves and in those around us. People trust leaders who are steady, not reactive. They follow those who can navigate uncertainty with a clear mind. A calm mind does not mean a lack of emotion. It means having the ability to control emotions rather than letting them control us. In high-pressure situations, people look for reassurance. Whether it is a crisis at work, a conflict in relationships, or an unexpected challenge in life, we naturally gravitate toward those who remain composed. Why? Because calmness signals control. It tells others, I have the ability to handle this. When we lose our cool, we send the opposite message, that the situation is bigger than us, that we are overwhelmed, that we are uncertain. But when we respond with calmness, we create stability. We become a source of strength for ourselves and for those who rely on us. Think about a moment when you felt uncertain or afraid. Maybe it was during a difficult conversation, a major life decision, or a situation where everything seemed to be going wrong. Now imagine someone close to you reacting in a state of panic. Their anxiety would only heighten your own. But if that person remained calm, steady, and reassuring, it would ease your fear. Their presence alone would make you feel more secure. This is the power of a calm mind. It influences not just our own confidence, but the confidence of those around us. Many people believe that confidence comes from knowing all the answers. But that is not true. Confidence comes from knowing that even if we do not have all the answers, we can handle whatever comes our way. And that belief only develops when we train ourselves to remain calm no matter the circumstances. The best leaders, the most effective communicators, and the most respected individuals all share this trait, the ability to remain composed when others would lose control. Calmness is not something we are born with, it is something we develop through practice. The first step is awareness, recognizing when we are starting to react emotionally rather than responding thoughtfully. When we feel stress, frustration, or fear rising, instead of letting it dictate our actions, we must pause, a deep breath, a short moment of reflection, a step back. These small actions create the space we need to shift from reaction to response. Another key to cultivating a calm mind is perspective. Most situations that seem overwhelming in the moment are temporary. When we remind ourselves that challenges are not permanent, that setbacks are not the end of the road, we stop overreacting to them. A calm mind sees problems for what they are, opportunities to learn, adapt, and grow. Resilience also plays a critical role. People who have faced challenges and overcome them develop a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken. They know that life will always bring difficulties, but they trust themselves to handle them. This trust is built through experience. Through every moment, we choose to remain calm instead of panicking, to think instead of react, to lead instead of follow fear. Calmness is not about ignoring emotions or pretending not to care. It is about developing the ability to process emotions without being consumed by them. It is about training our minds to focus on solutions rather than problems, to remain steady even in uncertainty. And when we do this consistently, we develop an unshakable confidence, one that influences not only our own lives, but the lives of those around us. A calm mind is a powerful mind.